Are you ready to unlock the true potential of your body and mind? Introducing Analemma Coherent Water, a revolutionary new way to improve your health and well-being. Analemma has been clinically proven to significantly increase ATP levels. These are the mitochondrial energy of your body. It significantly improves your gut health by improving the state of your microbiome and provides up to 12 years of biological age rejuvenation within 3 months of drinking this water. Imagine having more energy, a healthier gut, a clearer mind, and a youthful body. With Analemma water, it all stops being a dream. Take the first step towards unlocking your true potential. Try Analemma water and revolutionize your life. Visit coherent-water.com. Every purchase comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. You can literally taste the difference risk-free. Go to coherent-water.com. Don't forget to put in the code GENIUS10 to get some money off. Join the water revolution. Again, go to coherent-water.com and put in the code GENIUS10 for a discount.
Before we get started, I have a quick favor. I've been self-funding the Finding Genius podcast for 5 years now. I've done over 3,000 episodes. And as you can see on YouTube, we're up over 1 million views on the channel, which is fantastic. The next thing I really want to push on is to get up to 10,000 subscribers, because once we do, we'll be able to put a donate button, and we'll be able to solicit donations to help keep the podcast running and to also get the Finding Genius Foundation moving along. We have a big project studying anxiety, depression, and PTSD, and working on a product to help people overcome these problems, because I've seen them explode recently after the last 2 years of the whole virus situation. So if you would, please subscribe to the podcast. That would help us tremendously. Give us a thumbs up and check in the description for Buy Me a Coffee. It's about $5. If you could buy me a coffee, I'd really appreciate it. It would help keep the channel going, and I love coffee. Thank you.
Forget frequently asked questions,
common sense, common knowledge, or Google.
How about advice from a real genius? 95% of people in any profession are good enough to be qualified and licensed. 5%
go above and beyond.
They become very good at what they do, but only
0.1%
are real geniuses. Richard Jacobs has made it his life's mission to find them for you. He hunts down and interviews geniuses in every field: sleep science, cancer, stem cells, ketogenic diets, and more. Here come the geniuses. This is the Finding Genius Podcast
with Richard Jacobs.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Finding Genius Podcast, now part of the Finding Genius Foundation. I have Dr. Elsa Murano. She's a director, part of the Norman E. Borlaug Institute for International Agriculture and Development. She's at Texas A&M she was an associate professor for a while, dealt with food safety, and now she's doing more new exciting stuff. So we're going to talk about her current work. Elsa, thanks for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I'm a full professor. That's
So I realized that it was 20-some years ago. So yeah, you definitely would be full now. So that's great.
Thank you, Richard, for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Tell me about your current research.
Sure. Well, the Norman Borlaug Institute for International Agriculture, as the name implies, the work that we do here is international agriculture, and we work in developing countries all around the world. So Sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And what we do is, our mission, frankly, is to really follow the teachings, if you will, and the legacy of Dr. Norman Borlaug, which is to elevate smallholder farmers, these are individual family farmers, out of poverty and hunger through science. And so that is what we do. So whether it's a crop that they're growing or livestock or some processing of products, water conservation, sustainable practices of farming, whatever it may be that has to do with helping these farmers be able to frankly produce an agricultural crop or livestock or whatever for which there's a market, so they can sell it.
What their is it that they're growing things that don't have high value, or is it that the farming itself, they don't, they're having problems, getting fertilizer or growing properly? Like what causes a lot of farmers to be in poverty?
All of the above. It starts with frankly producing something for which there's a market, meaning that either the quality of their production needs to be improved so that they can compete, in the marketplace as they, export products and things of that nature, or it's a product that there's a demand for it, And one of the things that we found out early on is that, for example, if we help a farmer and their family grow potatoes, and every farmer in that area grows potatoes, that's fine. But if everybody's growing potatoes, there's a lot of competition. And frankly, if all then you have is potatoes to eat as the farmer and his family, then you're certainly not going to be well nourished. You are not able to sell your crops because there's really not a market for it because of the competition. So you're going to stay poor and all you're eating is that. Whereas if we help farmers identify a crop for which there's a market, let's say, and it depends on the country. It really, really does. It could be meat products. It could be coffee. It could be spices. It could be crops. Then
why would a farmer in a given country not be aware of what sells and what the prices are? Like, why is there a disconnect?
Because they don't have the connection to economics and the marketplace. These are family farms. These are folks that have grown up in the most poor parts of a country, growing whatever it is that they're growing. They don't have the ability, the knowledge, and frankly, a lot of times it takes money. You have to grow a certain kind of crop, you have to buy fertilizer, other kinds of inputs, and they don't have the money. So there has to be a situation where they have access to credit and things of that nature. And not every country provides that to their citizens.
Well, I mean, to give like a really crude example, some farmers, I'm sure in, South America, Central America, would grow cocaine because there's a lot more money in it than coffee or whatever they may grow. So why would they be able to do that, figure that out, and other farmers can't? Like, what do you think the difference is?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of restrictions.
It's a good thing by any means, but at least they figured out, okay, economically.
There's restrictions, there's regulations, there's, who's going to then go to the market. And to be honest with you, what happens with farmers, whatever it is that they're producing in developing countries, okay, is that they get taken advantage of by the exporters a lot of times. So it's really a multiple series of things that keep these farmers poor. Now, I will tell you this, for example, just to give you a good example, we've done many, many projects, but good example is a project we did in Rwanda where there was a company, a multinational company that makes herbicides and pesticides, and they have a line of all natural herbicides. And so they know that in Rwanda, this company figured that in Rwanda, they grow wild this flower out of which they can extract this essential oil and use it in their products. So the company approached us because we had a lot of experience working in Rwanda and said, hey, can you help us go into Rwanda and help farmers produce these flowers so that they can then sell it to us, and we can have enough to make our product. And so what we did, and this is, pretty formulaic, is we went in there, we got farmers that were not growing the crop, it was just growing wild, but we got them together into a farmer cooperative. Very important. Why? Because when you have a group of farmers working together in a cooperative where they're members, they have more power in terms of being able to sell their products because they're together. They also can access credit a lot easier from banks, okay, to buy whatever it is that they need. Plus also we train them on how to grow these flowers very efficiently, cost efficiently, so that they don't water them too much or not enough and don't put too many fertilizers or not enough, so that it's as efficient as possible, which we have the knowledge to do that here at Texas A&M. And then they were able to then sell those flowers to the government of Rwanda, which then had a facility where they extracted this essential oil and then they sold it to the company. So it was a beautiful thing because the farmers' income went up tremendously. The country itself did well. They were able to sell their product very simply to a company that really needed it. And frankly, and they did it in such a cost-effective way that they were able to send their kids to school, buy medicines for them, and so forth. So, when you elevate them out of poverty because you help them produce whatever it is that needs to be produced efficiently, it makes all the sense in the world. When the project was over and we left, they're still going strong.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm sure they do need to form communities, though, because otherwise, I don't know, people will extort them, beat them up, take their stuff. Who knows? I'm sure
they don't have the same access to markets. They just don't, because they're seen as, okay, here's one. They don't have the strength of experience and supplies and facilities, and employees.
Are you ready to unlock the true potential of your body and mind? Introducing Analemma Coherent Water, a revolutionary new way to improve your health and well-being. Analemma has been clinically proven to significantly increase ATP levels. These are the mitochondrial energy of your body. It significantly improves your gut health by improving the state of your microbiome and provides up to 12 years of biological age rejuvenation within 3 months of drinking this water. Imagine having more energy, a healthier gut, a clearer mind, and a youthful body. With Analemma water, it all stops being a dream. Take the first step towards unlocking your true potential. Try Analemma water and revolutionize your life. Visit coherent-water.com. Every purchase comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. You can literally taste the difference risk-free. Go to coherent-water.com. Don't forget to put in the code GENIUS10 to get some money off. Join the water revolution. Again, go to coherent-water.com and put in the code GENIUS10 for a discount. They can't be everything. They can't farm and take it to the distributors and then, like there's a bunch of people on the chain. So one person can do everything and have time to live.
No, very good. Absolutely.
So at the farmer level, I understand you teach them, train them, have them form groups and all that. But what if the product requires a couple of other levels, like, local people that will gather from X number of farmers and take it to market, or take it to bigger distributors, which will then take it to bigger ones? Or is that usually unnecessary? Is that like an artificial thing that involves some corruption?
It's a whole chain, and we work with all the elements of the chain, from starting with the producers, the farmers themselves, obviously. And sometimes, by the way, we help them with introducing varieties of whatever crop that maybe are more resilient to the conditions that they're finding themselves in, because that's one of the other issues with a lot of these countries is you go from flooding to drought conditions. They don't have the technology and equipment to irrigate their crops like we do here, so they rely on rainfall, which may or may not come at the right time. So all of that stuff, we help them at the production level. But then we go on and help them on the processing, on the marketing. And also, frankly, a lot of it has to do with policies in the country. So we work with the ministries of agriculture of those countries, because for them to sell a product, for example, to export it, it has to meet standards of safety and quality. And so we help the governments there figure out, okay, what are those standards? How do they then are able to help these farmers achieve those standards and monitor that those are achieved on a consistent basis, so that a country that is buying that particular product can rely on the fact that, hey, the country government is ensuring that these products are meeting our requirements. So it's all of the above, to be honest.
Yeah, from a very cynical point of view, why would Texas A&M do this, and why would organizations in the U.S. do this unless they were going to get the exports of the product?
Well, I'll tell you, there's several reasons, okay? One good reason is that when a country is able to stand itself up in terms of being able to produce agricultural products that we would like to buy, we import from them, that's great. It helps them, it helps us. But then also they become a trade partner, okay? By trading with us, then we sell them some things. And so it's a relationship that gets built up. And it helps them, it helps us. So that's one very practical reason, okay? Another very practical reason, which actually was at the heart of the legacy of Dr. Borlaug, he said, peace cannot be built on empty stomachs or on human misery. Meaning that when people around the world are poor, they're hungry, they have no future because they don't have enough food diverse enough to eat, they rebel. Conflict follows. They take over. They fight the government. And when there's conflict and wars, usually it's our soldiers end up going to, try to make some peace. And so it affects us directly, and so we cannot just live in our bubble here and ignore what goes on in other parts of the world, because it comes back to haunt us, eventually, because we're all very interconnected. So that's another very important reason to help these countries that are not doing so well, because we're preventing conflict as opposed to having to go in there once conflict has started and do something about it. So that's an important thing. And then third, frankly, the very good reason that, it's humanity. How do we do nothing when we know that there's people starving to death, just on the other side of the border, for example? It makes no sense. We need to be good neighbors like I say, it helps us in many ways, but it also is something that is, as people, we want to help others. That's certainly something that we as human beings should do, is to help each other as much as we can, because that could be us, but by the grace of God.
How do you make sure that the things you put in place don't become corrupted later on? What happens if you guys leave and then some local, person comes in and tries to extort the farmers to say, like, you're going to come through me now and I'm going to collect, a fee and I'm going to distribute it and all that. How do you make sure that doesn't fall apart?
It first begins by the fact that we work not in every country, okay? Countries differ in terms of their degree of stability, okay? It's impossible, really, to work in a country where that is completely unstable because the government is a mess. And as you just indicated, people do whatever they want, and, criminal elements do whatever they want. That's very, very difficult. So we try to work in countries where at least there's some modicum of stability, where the government, at least if they don't have the tools and the know-how, we can help them. We can inform them so that they can do their jobs better. But it has to begin that way, that the government has to be willing to help its citizens and do its work. If it's not doing it because they don't have the resources and so forth, then that can be fixed. But if you have a corrupt government that's going to look the other way and not help its farmers, it's very, very difficult to work in a place like that. And a good example is Haiti, okay, which is a country that we would love to work and help those farmers there, but it's really very, very difficult right now for the very reasons that you stated.
Okay. How do you guys identify what projects to work on?
Okay.
Work on it.
Part of it is we get most of our funding, almost all of our funding, from the U.S. government, from the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, it's called. It's part of the Department of State. And USAID, what they do is they identify countries where, as I said, are stable enough, but they're in need and so forth. And so they identify those countries. They call them Feed the Future countries, because Feed the Future is the name of the program that they have, where they fund institutions like us to do something in those countries and help those people. So they help a lot in that they identify those countries where we can work. Okay? They're stable enough, if you will. And so we respond to proposals that USAID puts out to work in a variety of countries. And so we, depending on what it is that is being asked to be done and what experience and expertise we have, we will submit proposals and get funded to do the work. And so off we go to the country, and we typically employ local folks to work in our offices there, as well as, staff that we locate there. But then our experts, the faculty, it's not like they're going to go there and live there for several years. No, they stay here, but they go every whatever period of time for a week or two to do demonstrations, to do whatever it is that needs to be done with their expertise, with our staff down in the country managing everything and making the schedules for, the training programs for the farmers, setting up a demonstration farm where the various varieties of whatever crop can be shown how to grow them and what are the strategies that are used in planting and irrigation and everything else like that, so that you're as efficient as possible and you do it in a sustainable, climate smart way, so that you're minimizing the production of greenhouse gases and so forth, and you're trying to capture as much carbon in the soil. And there's a lot of strategies that are used that our faculty here, our experts, know what to do. So that's how we operate, to be honest with you. So it ends up being a variety of countries, as I say, in Sub-Saharan Africa. Also in Latin America is really Central America, to be honest with you. It's Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador. Those are the countries. It's not really South America, because the world is kind of divided into the low-income countries, which are the poorest, middle-income countries, and then high-income countries. Obviously, the U.S., Canada, European Union countries, those are all the high-income countries, Australia, etc. South America is where you have more than middle income to high income. And then the ones that we focus on are those low-income countries. So it's Central America for the most part, Sub-Saharan Africa, and parts of Asia.
Once you get the agreement of a country's government, what's your process? Do you go and interview farmers? and find out their problems? And how do you, what are the main milestones in this process once you start?
And let me clarify that we don't get an agreement from the country. They've already worked that out at USAID, that the country is allowing, experts to come in and work with farmers. But to answer your question, what we do is an assessment first of where are the farmers in terms of a specific crop, for example, in terms of where are the farmer groups and are there cooperatives already or not. And we do all of that fact-finding or assessment, if you will, ahead of time as we're submitting the proposal, so that when we submit the proposal, we know what we're going to do when we get funded. So once we get funded, we go in there, establish our office, like I said, and begin the process of working with groups of farmers, establishing cooperatives if we need to, or unless they already have cooperatives, and meeting with the heads of those cooperatives, establishing perhaps a farm where we can do demonstrations and training. If it's a matter of developing new varieties, we work with those farmer groups to work in their farms to see what can be done in terms of adjusting some of the growing conditions to maximize production. Okay. And we frankly provide a report on a regular basis then to USAID, our funder, as well as make presentations so that people start to see what the impact is. And once we have done that, typically then you see that other farmers in that region start to then get interested. And so that information hopefully get delivered even beyond those initial groups of farmers that we worked with. So it's an interesting process. It's worked very, very well for us. What we do is then maintain a good working relationship with the Ministry of Agriculture of that particular country, so that the folks in that ministry, they themselves are trained. We train them so that when we leave, they can continue to train farmers, because that's the important thing. We like to work ourselves out of a job, if you will. We do our project and we want to be able to, when we leave, that we left enough there so that people know what to do going forward. They don't depend on us, because then that's not, it's a hand up, not a hand out, as we like to say it. We're helping them to help themselves.
Okay. That makes sense. I don't know, any interesting stories of projects that you worked on that either went really well and had a surprising good results, or a strange complication happened that, I don't know, really threw you for a loop, but yeah, you guys solved? Any good stories from the field?
Well, we have all kinds of stories, I can tell you. There's even stories where, unfortunately, and this happened to us in South Sudan, conflict broke out, okay? And we had to leave the project. Just that's what happens sometimes in countries, is that situations get to a point where you cannot continue to be there for safety reasons and so forth. So that has happened to us. We have worked in places where, for example, we have a big project, small-scale irrigation. Okay, I alluded to it earlier that sometimes farmers in rural areas and countries in Africa don't have the equipment and the ability to irrigate crops. So what typically happens is the woman of the household, gets a big bucket, puts it on her head, walks miles to the nearest lake or river or source of water, fills it up, and brings it back after hours of, again, walking with this thing on her head. And that's the amount of water that has to be used not only by the family to, for their hygiene and food preparation and everything like that, but it's the water that they have to irrigate the crops that they're trying to sell. Well, as you can imagine, that's just not enough. That doesn't cut it. And so when they have drought periods, that's just horrific situation. So what we've done in parts of Africa, Mali is one place where I can give you an example, is we introduced solar-powered pump, $250, pretty cheap, frankly, where we would set it up in a farmer's land and be able to pump water out of the ground, because in a lot of those countries, there are wells, they're just very deep, and they don't have a way to pump the water out because there's no electricity and so forth. And so they are able to pump the water. Then they have enough water, more than enough water, to irrigate their crops, have water for the family use. The mom doesn't have to go walking for miles anymore. And importantly, and this was kind of a side benefit that we did not anticipate, because the mom has now all kinds of time, and is able to work in the field with her husband, to produce her crops. But now she has enough time that she starts, and this is what they're doing, a horticulture garden in their backyard, in their farm. So growing fruits and vegetables, which are very nutritious, okay? And so it has diversified the diet in the household, in those households. And we have been able to measure that the increase in vitamin A, vitamin C, the B vitamins and so forth in the diets of the children in these families. And I should tell you that, most people may not know this, that around the world in developing countries, 1 out of every 3 kids is stunted. That's 33%. That means out of 3 kids, 1 kid is stunted. Now, what that means is that his or her little brain did not develop properly in the mother's womb because the mom wasn't able to eat, enough foods that were nutritious and so forth. So the baby's brain never really developed. So that baby is born, and it doesn't matter if then later on in life the baby is able to get enough food. The brain never did develop when the brain is supposed to be developing in the womb. And so that's a horrific fact. And so when we have a project like this where our aim was to help them irrigate their crops so they could sell them and so forth, we didn't realize that they would then be able to have enough time to grow these very nutritious crops, fruits and vegetables, and that impacted in a very, very positive way the nutritional situation of the family.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
What kinds of innovations are you working on, though, in your I know there's identifying these opportunities, that there's the teams that, work with USA to implement. But what is your role? Like, what is the other research questions that, you're always looking for new plants to match to, new environments, or like, what is the research component of this?
Yes. And to be honest with you, we are so lucky here at Texas A&M to be in the state of Texas because we're huge as a state. And as a result, we have a variety of different, soil types around the state of Texas, different temperature gradients, water gradients, and so forth. And so the crops that our scientists here have developed, be it corn or wheat or sorghum or, whatever it may be, to grow in the particular part of Texas that's, maybe suffering from droughts or whatever it may be, is very helpful because then there's a lot of these developing countries that have similar conditions as what we have in some parts of Texas. So if we have developed a variety of rice, for example, that, grows in a part of Texas that, we have to develop our own varieties because it's different than Arkansas, for example, or Louisiana. It so happens then that variety grows really well in a particular country in Sub-Saharan Africa or in Asia because they have similar conditions as we have here in Texas. So we have a tremendous advantage compared to, the Midwest, which, they have their specific conditions there, but we really have a gradient of conditions that give us that ability to have our faculty already have developed a lot of things that we can then apply to developing countries. They develop them for Texas, but they work in these developing countries.
Okay, well, very good. Well, so what's the best way for people to find out more about your work and these programs? Where can they go?
Thank you very much. We have, of course, a presence on the website, Borlaug Institute. If you just type that, Google that, you'll find us. And you will see where we work, as I alluded to, all over the world. You'll also read a little bit about the history of our namesake, Norman Borlaug. A lot of people may not have heard of Norman Borlaug. He actually was not even from Texas. He was from Iowa, okay? He grew up at a time in Iowa when there were a lot of droughts and the dust storms of that time. Anyway, he became a plant scientist, a breeder. And so he went to work in the 1960s at a research facility, a research center in Mexico. It's a center that's an international research center that works on maize and wheat. And so he developed a variety of wheat that in the 1960s, at that time in history, there were countries that were starving to death, Mexico, Pakistan, India. And so what he did is he developed a variety that would grow really well in these countries. And so what that did, frankly, is, he saved, in fact, he's been credited with having saved more lives than any other human being. He saved 1 billion, with a B, 1 billion lives. As a result, in 1970, he was given the Nobel Peace Prize for his work. So a tremendous figure. And, you can imagine at that time he had to talk with Indira Gandhi to convince her to let the seeds of his wheat variety come into India. And he did. And it saved people. So he got the Nobel Prize in 1970. He also, got other prizes during his career. He got the Presidential Medal of Science from President George W. Bush in 2006. I was lucky to be there with Dr. Borlaug. In fact, I got to know Dr. Borlaug. I should say this to you, that after he retired, his family was living in Dallas. So because he was in Dallas and several of our faculty got to know him because they were breeders as well, they convinced him to come teach part-time at Texas A&M. So once a year, he would come down and give a few lectures. And in 1995, when I came to Texas A&M as a professor, is when I got to meet Dr. Borlaug. He was, very unassuming person, but what a figure, what an inspiration. So he taught here the last 25 years of his life, more or less. So in 2006, he was given the Presidential Medal of Science by President George W. Bush. And in 2007, he was given, an incredible award, the Congressional Gold Medal in 2007. This Congress doesn't give that medal to just anybody. And frankly, if you go to Washington, D.C. and you go to the Capitol, there's statues of all kinds of, famous people. Every state of the union can have up to 2 statues of their famous, son or daughter. And so the state of Iowa basically petitioned that they would be able to put the statue of Dr. Borlaug on his 100th, what would have been his 100th birthday. He died when he was 95 in 2009. So I was in the Capitol building 2014 when they unveiled his statue in Statuary Hall there in the Capitol, not too far from Thomas Jefferson's statue and some other very important people. So he was the real thing. And so we live here in all of his work, but then also to try to not let him down, okay, to continue to do the work that, being a hunger fighter, which is what he was. And frankly, one of the things we do too is we work with young people because he was very much a believer in youth development, developing the next group of hunger fighters, if you will, the next generation. And so he was a tremendously inspiring person. I can tell you that, the things that he would say to me still are engraved in my head. And I will leave you with this very quick story. When I first met him, 1995-ish, we were having lunch after an event, I think maybe a year later or so. And so he was very unassuming, little old man, kind of, sitting there, and we were talking. And so I knew who he was, of course. And so he says to me, so Dr. Murano, what do you do here? And I had just been hired basically as a food microbiologist. Food safety is my area of expertise. And I said, well, Dr. Borlaug, I'm a food microbiologist. And so he looked at me and he says, so what do you do that helps people directly? And I said, well, I conduct research on foodborne pathogens that can contaminate food, salmonella, et cetera, to try to, mitigate contamination. He says, yeah, but that's you in the lab. What do you do that helps people directly? And I said, well, I publish those results and I present them at scientific meetings. And says, yeah, but that's you with other scientists like you. What do you do that helps people directly? So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to say here? Well, Dr. Borlaug, I teach. Those are people, my students here at Texas A&M. So he smiles at me and says, yes, but you're teaching them to become like you. What do you do that helps people directly? So finally, of course, Richard, I said, nothing, Dr. Borlaug. Okay. And so he looked at me and then had his little old man finger pointed at me with a big smile on his face. And he said, it's up to you that whatever you do in life helps people directly. And boy, little did I know then, 1996 or so, that how my career was going to develop and that one day I was going to be leading his namesake institute, the Norman Borlaug Institute for International Agriculture. I've been the director for about 11 years, and it's just been tremendously fulfilling. And he was absolutely right. Life is short. We need to do things that matter, and we need to do the things that help people directly. And so as we go around the world in our projects, we see how other people live, and, there by the grace of God go I, that could be me. And so we have to help people. because that could be us. And when we do, and when we leave a country and people are doing for themselves, there's no better feeling.
Yeah. They should have a huge statue of Borlaug in the lobby pointing his finger and looking. So when you walk in, you're like, and he's pointing his finger at you. And says,
well, we actually have a miniature version here in the office of his statue that's in Capitol Hill. So what we do is whenever we submit a proposal, go up to the top of his head, he's wearing a hat, and I rub it for good luck, But we do feel his presence here. And like I said, we interacted with him greatly. We have a lot of his memorabilia here at the Borlaug Institute. Family has his medals, okay? But we have some replicas and so forth. But we also have a lot of his documents and many pictures. Like I say, I had an excellent relationship with him. I had the privilege to go see him on his last week of life. He had cancer. And so he was in Dallas, and 95 years of age. I still believe that if he had not gotten cancer, he'd still be alive today. He was that tough. But he said to me, as he was there his last week of life, he was in hospice in his living room, and he said, Elsa, don't let the dream die. So my gosh, how do you do anything more than, continue to be dedicated to this work? His daughter, Jeannie Borlaug, is a retired teacher living in Dallas. His granddaughter, Julie Borlaug, actually used to work for us here at the Borlaug Institute, very dedicated to carrying forward his legacy. And Jeannie told me, actually, that the day that Dr. Borlaug died in 2009, surrounded by family, I said to her, well, tell me, what were his last words? Okay. I love you. What did he say? And she said, no, actually, his last words, his last breath, he said, take it to the farmer. What he meant by that is the training. Take the knowledge, the scientific discovery and things that we've been able to develop here. Take it to the farmer. Give it to the farmer for him or her to use, to employ, to improve their lives. Don't just publish papers and, okay, that's great, but take it to the farmer. Take the knowledge to the farmer. So, incredible.
Excellent. Well, so it's been really good to speak to you, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And, it's cool that you hold in highest regard the welfare of these people you're trying to help. Like you said, we usually all could be in their place. So it's nice to hear that. I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. And really, everyone, do what you can to help others. We're in this together.
Are you ready to unlock the true potential of your body and mind? Introducing Analemma Coherent Water, a revolutionary new way to improve your health and well-being. Analemma has been clinically proven to significantly increase ATP levels. These are the mitochondrial energy of your body. It significantly improves your gut health by improving the state of your microbiome and provides up to 12 years of biological age rejuvenation within 3 months of drinking this water. Imagine having more energy, a healthier gut, a clearer mind, and a youthful body. With Analemma water, it all stops being a dream. Take the first step towards unlocking your true potential. Try Analemma water and revolutionize your life. Visit coherent-water.com. Every purchase comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. You can literally taste the difference risk-free. Go to coherent-water.com. Don't forget to put in the code GENIUS10 to get some money off. Join the water revolution. Again, go to coherent-water.com and put in the code GENIUS10 for a discount.
If you like this podcast, please click the link in the description to subscribe and review us on iTunes.
You've been listening to the Finding Genius podcast with Richard Jacobs. If you like what you hear, be sure to review and subscribe to the Finding Genius podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And want to be smarter than everybody else? Become a premium member at findinggeniuspodcast.com. This podcast is for information only. No advice of any kind is being given. Any action you take or don't take as a result of listening is your sole responsibility. Consult professionals when advice is needed.